Hello, hi everyone. My name is Patal and today I'm going to be talking about SDE career development. In my opinion, this is one of the most undervalued topics that people do not talk about enough, and I wish I would have known some of these things early on in my career. But nonetheless, I would be sharing these words of wisdom with you folks so that you can sail through your software journey and make it more productive. So without any further ado, let's get started. We'll be talking about SDE job leveling guidelines for SDE 1s, 2s, 3s, and principal engineers. We'll be diving deeper into the expectations, scope, complexity, and body of work that is required at each of these levels. We'll also see the importance of level of independence versus level of influence. We'll see how we can grow our career by not just widening and deepening our technical expertise, but also by aligning our work and efforts towards the business objectives of a team or organization that we work in. We'll look at the tech lead model, which is a great tool for a personal development, and it also helps us enable our team to move in the right direction. Then we'll take a look at the promotion process, how one can go from one level to the other. Then finally, we'll take a quick peek at the promo doc writing, and then we'll end this session with a bunch of FAQs. Now let's quickly look at the software engineer levels. So as a fresher, we'll be joining any company in the capacity of SD1, and there could be two possible levels when we talk in parlance with Microsoft. So it could be either 59 or 60. When we grow into SD2, we can either be operating at a level of 61 or 62. When we become senior SDEs or SD3s or senior software engineers, all these words are pretty much synonymous. We can either be operating at a level 63 or 64. When we grow into principal engineers, we would have a range from 65 to 67. Now some people still continue in the IC role, so you can still become a partner IC. It means individual contributor, and you can still hold levels 68 or 69. After partner IC, you can become a distinguished engineer, which is at level 70. And finally, the buck stops at level 80, which is the technical fellow. So in my opinion, this is more of an honorary position, and this is actually held by very few people who have really established their name and fame into the software industry through years of work and perseverance. Now talking about SD1s, they are still in the learning phase. They require a lot of guidance, bit of nudging and hinting on their work from their seniors and peers, especially in the form of SD2s and SD3s. They also take in well-crafted requirements from them and convert them into meaningful code. At this point of time, they should be able to estimate time and effort for their coding implementation, and they should be able to successfully deploy these new features into production without having a lot of regressions. Now, one thing which is quite important for SD1 is to show great bias for action. They have to balance out their dive deep and bias for action because speed is critical to business. So they should always ensure that they are taking the right decisions and moving forward. So now talking about SD2s, they start operating more independently. They take in a problem statement whose requirements are not very clear, and they convert them into well-crafted technical solutions. At this point of time, they should be able to estimate time and effort not just for implementing their code, but also implementing the design. And their code review should be uneventful, unlike SD1s. It definitely does not mean that you are not welcoming any critical feedbacks on your PRs, but all it means is that once you have implemented your code and you are seeking feedbacks, the logical crux of your code should not change, because that would be a definite no-no for an SD2. And at this point of time, you start widening your horizon, looking into the architecture and not just limited to the code, which is pretty much the work of an SD1. You also try to improve your team through different operations and processes that can kick in and make your team more effective. And at this junction, you also try to balance out the technology that you are building with the business value that you're driving. So now when you grow up the ladder from SD2 to SD3, you sort of become the team leader, meaning you're not just leading your team from the front, but you're also driving best practices and solving bigger problems. Or maybe let me take my statement back, because bigger is a big word to say. What I really meant is, now you're trying to solve problems which are highly ambiguous in nature, meaning both business as well as technical requirements are not very clear to you. So at this point of time, or in other words, what I can say is you really try and tease apart the business objectives and convert them into well-crafted technical solutions. And now you're not just thinking about code, but you're also thinking in terms of long-term architecture, how you can invest there, and what could be the possible technical vision for your team, for your organization, and you consistently try to make these systems simpler so that people can appreciate you in future. And again, the amount of time that now you would be spending on coding versus designing will drastically change, as it happened in my case. So now you spend a lot of time reviewing code and design for your juniors, for your peers, providing value added feedback that can help your team grow. And at this point of time, you're not seeking spotlight, but rather you are just driving the right vision for your team, and you are contributing to the success of others within your team, within your organization, and making them grow further. Now let's quickly talk about principal engineer tenets. So these tenets are certain guidelines that always ensure that you're not getting caught up in the groupthink, and at the same time it always help you stay true to your business and to the engineering core values. So now we have a bunch of tenets that I've mentioned here. Obviously I cannot talk about all of them because it will require hours and hours to expand each one of them, but I can definitely take a couple of examples that might help you understand better. And one of my favorites is respect what came before, which goes beyond the boundaries of a principal engineer. So let me explain how. So one of the myths and biases in the software industry is that people think that whenever they are building something very fancy or probably from scratch or from the ground up, by tearing down something which has been there for last 5 years, 10 years, because now it's legacy according to their own definition, which does not work well. So in this fashion, they feel that if they are trying to build something very fancy from the ground up, this will earn their promotion. But unfortunately, the answer is no. Why? Because the merit lies in the fact that anything that has been done before, you should be able to understand why certain things have been built or created in a manner that they exist today. And also one of the factors, anything that I'm writing today is becoming legacy tomorrow. Right? Let me reiterate this statement again. Anything that I will write today will become legacy tomorrow. So maybe like 6 months down the lane, I would be looking at my own code saying that, this is legacy, this is not working out because I was thinking in some other direction at that point of time. So obviously, you should always respect what is there, and the merit lies in the fact that you understand that code, right? Like people will appreciate you more if you understand the systems which have been built, and instead of tearing it apart, breaking down everything and creating things from the scratch, you try to build your solutions on top of it. And now you can see wonders, and that can make the code maintainable, and that will also earn your promotion. Trust me on that. The second point is have resounding impact. So one way to explain this is, as we always say, that deliver results is a low bar for SD3 and principal engineers, right? What it essentially means is, so you cannot just wave off saying that, hey, there are 5 features that I was implementing for the last 6 months and I have already done it. Now I want my another promotion, right? So that is not the case, because you always have to go above and beyond. And by above and beyond, what I mean is not just looking at the problem statement or the tasks that you have been given, but looking beyond that boundary and understanding what your organization, what your company needs. And if you're able to come up with solutions without seeking the spotlight and helping other teams, bringing them to closure, and or just providing a certain solution to it, then you would have that kind of resounding impact, right? Which is extremely important. And again, it might not just hold true for the principal engineers, but maybe for the other SD3s, SD2s as well. Now let's quickly talk about the promotion process. Now this is one of those hush-hush topics that people do not want to talk about. And most people think that it is more like a politically driven discussion happening among managers or seniors within closed doors, within a closed room, right? And discussing about you. So let me just tell you this, that yes, like this is pretty much what they do, obviously without the hats and cigars. Okay. And the second point is, they definitely discuss about you, but you are not the center of discussion. There are multiple people who are put up for promotion. People discuss about you, look at your growth and trajectory, the kind of work that you have accomplished, and all sorts of areas of improvement and strengths, and accordingly they make a decision and then move on. Now at any company, whenever you are getting promoted to the next level, so it always means that you have already started demonstrating that you are operating at that next level. Only then the promotion happens. So while promoting, what leaders look at is your track record, how many successful deliverables you have done, whether these are low defects or having a lot of regressions or having production bugs which you might not have foreseen, and whether you have completed your task and milestones within the stipulated time or you're always running late. It means maybe once or twice, if you have not completed your milestones or not completed your projects and probably delayed them by 1 or 2 weeks, that is absolutely fine. But if this is turning out to be a pattern, then it's a definite no-no and you need to work on it. People also look at your design aspects, whether what kind of work that you have done that has really improved the performance of your systems or you have increased the availability of your services. And another testament of your work is whatever you have created, whether people are able to reuse it, right? So that is also highly appreciated. Now, obviously, there are a bunch of ideas that I've mentioned or the bunch of things that people actually discuss during a promotion. I may not be able to go through all of them, but one of the important point is the scope of influence, right? And the ability to build consensus. So it means whether you are just working in silo or you are expanding your horizon and increasing your influence, not just within your team, but outside your team, and not just within your org, but also outside your org. And whether you are able to partner well with all your stakeholders, probably product managers, program managers, within and across teams, your SDMs, and your peers and seniors, right? Or maybe away teams, and how you are trying to incorporate their feedbacks and you are building consensus and moving forward. Now let's quickly look at this statement. It's a great one. It speaks a lot more than what is written here. So ask your manager to treat you like you are already at the next level. So it does not work like this, that on some odd day, you just go to your manager and you say, hey, can you just treat me as if I'm already operating at an SD3 level while you are just operating at a SD2 level, right? So it doesn't work that way. What it really means is that you get into that mindset that if I want a promotion to the next level, I am operating at the next level as if I am at the next level. Now, one of the drawbacks what I've seen is there are always areas of improvement for everyone, including you and me. But sometimes what people do is they spend a lot of time and energy just bridging the gaps or, just filling up their weaknesses. But in that case, what happens is it will always slow you down. So always try to play to your strengths and not just bridging your gaps, because that will help you grow further and it will also help your team and organization to move forward. Now let's quickly talk about growing your career, and there are a bunch of ideas that I've mentioned here. One of them is software engineering, and as I already mentioned before, the merit does not lie in the fact that you're trying to solve a complex problem with a complex solution. The merit always lies in the fact when you're trying to solve a complex problem with a simple solution. Why? Because it is highly maintainable and people will really appreciate you for this. Because what happens if you have built a very complex system and 6 months down the lane, some other engineer is maintaining it and finding it really hard, and that engineer could be just you, and now you can be scratching your head thinking why you built such a complex system 6 months back, right? The other part is you should always try to think of long-term architecture, and your solutions should possibly be more extensible. And what I really mean is you always think in terms of breaking it apart into standalone pieces, and they should not have a tight coupling. Again, it is very relevant from case to case basis, but always try to ensure that your systems should have less coupling and they should be more debuggable, and that should be able to work well for the other teams as well. You should always be able to test your code thoroughly, and you cannot just wave off your hand by saying that, hey, this already worked in my machine, but what if it went into production and it created a lot of ruckus, right? So that should not happen. Now there is one point which is mentioned as commitment to quality. Now this is one of the most important pieces that I always tell different software engineers to look out for. So it's not just about not compromising about the quality, but also ensuring that you are building something which is relevant for your customers, right? So one of the important leadership principles that we have is customer obsession. What it really means is, what if you are working on some $1 million idea, but what if it does not work, for your customers, or your customers do not like that? Then it's of no use. So that's why your commitment to quality and making or bringing that quality into processes is highly appreciated. Always work on something which is quite desirable for your customers, and you always work backwards from there. Then you should always write good documentation. It could be in terms of wikis, documentations, because these are lasting artifacts. And again, people would have a lot of appreciation for you if you do that. And documentation can also come in the form of code, because when you're writing public APIs, so many people do not do those documentations. So always ensure that you are raising the bar in terms of your team's documents, your org documentation, and finding a way to always enhance that. The another important point for growing your career is leadership and influence. So what it means is you should always try to strive for going above and beyond, and not just limited to your project and execution. So it means you are championing best practices, you're always coming up with innovative ideas and sharing those projects and new ideas with your team, with your stakeholders, with your seniors. And you should be able to take significant technical ownership for the work that you are doing, right? So essentially what it means is you are accountable for all the work that you are doing. So you should be thinking, walking and talking like the owner, like you own it, you ship it, and anything that comes with it is also owned by you. It means the goods and the bads, right? You should be able to gain consensus across different teams, and you should be able to harmonize discordant views, find the best way to move forward, right? Let me expand on this point. So essentially what I've seen in the software industry is a lot of disagreements happen because of two reasons, right? One is quite simple. Obviously, when you're presenting something with your peers or your seniors or within the team, and if people disagree on that, then point one is obviously because your solution, your idea is not really good, and which is absolutely fine. I have tons of bad ideas, right? So I don't want to bore you with that, but that is absolutely fine. The second reason why people have disagreements is it could be just simply lack of communication, right? So basically what I've just mentioned in a few slides back is, let's say I'm working on this $1 billion idea and I'm looking at this amazing code that I'm writing, right? But what if it is not aligning with my customers, right? So always step into the shoes of customers, understand their needs and wants, take feedbacks, take anecdotes, and then try to build a technical solution that will be quite efficient for them, right? And that will always help you grow your career, and that would also show you in the spotlight that okay, you are having that influence for harmonizing discordant views among different people. Okay, another important point to grow your career is connecting with the business. So sometimes what I've seen is people are extremely brilliant technically, but they do not have that business acumen, right? What it means is you should always be insightful, and you should always work in terms of your team's priorities, or you should always think of projects or executions that how it is aligning with your director's priorities, right? Or maybe your VP's priorities. You should always be driving certain metrics that is enhancing the business. For example, DPMO, right? Let's call it as defects per million order. So let's say in every 1 million order that I'm doing, I'm having a defect of 5,000, right? So now tomorrow if I take an aggressive goal that I would reduce this DPMO somehow by doing XYZ things in the next 6 months, and I will reduce this DPMO from 5,000 to 2,500. It means I'm directly cutting down this issue and bringing down that metric from 5,000 to 2,500, right? So I'm already enhancing 50%. So you should always be thinking in terms of driving business metrics and connecting with the business. And probably like if you start improving on a metric or a team goal, you will always keep on growing. Okay, another point is once you establish yourself as an expert, you are anyhow growing in your career. What it really means is if you are a senior person, you can actively mentor multiple junior people, and there are various forums. You can have 2 or 3 mentees at one time. You can be a part of company-wide programs such as bar racer programs, right? Where you are not just taking lots of interviews, but you're also mentoring other people to become bar racers. This is something I've done in the past. I have mentored dozens of people, not just bar racers. And so you can become that expert in that area. And you can also give a lot of talk sessions. You can shepherd office hours. For example, there is one system which you are an expert, right? So you are a subject matter expert for one of the components, and there are multiple stakeholders or different people who are coming to onboard onto your systems, right? So you can always hold office hours, look into their problems, guide them into the right direction, or provide them with efficient solutions. So you start establishing yourself as an SME, subject matter expert, and that will help you grow in your career and enhance it. Another important point is recruiting. So one fact that I want to quote here is almost everyone, including you and me, is a product of hiring, right? Anyone who is working in a company, we are a product of hiring, right? Because people are always looking out for good talent. So you should always invest some time in probably recruiting for your team, for your company, if possible. And that will also help you sharpen your own skills and decision making. And you can always purposefully make improvements in the recruiting process if you feel like that something is not really going well for your team or for the company. You can always do those suggestions. I have already done it in Amazon long time back. So other point is you can also help your manager decide how the team needs to grow. For example, your team is doing a lot of heavy lifting in the back end, right? But now you are getting some projects which highly demand the front end work. So now you can anticipate that kind of work, probably write a one pager or two pager, identifying what are the key resources you would be needing. And you can have those kind of discussions with your manager that, hey, we might be, working on this front end thing. And would it be better to hire a front end engineer, right? So that senior person can guide us and we can become better at it. Okay, last but not the least, another quick point for growing your career is your personal development. So obviously everybody should read the SD role description document if you're getting hired into a company. So you should always understand those things, as I was mentioning before. You should be able to understand your strengths and weaknesses and constantly identify those gaps. Partner with your manager, start creating a development plan, how you want to address those gaps and how you want to move forward. Seek promotions, right? So everything is all documented. You have to work with your manager and your stakeholders, and you will be able to ace them, right? If you have a good plan and you're executing it well. And you should always take on stretch goals, work on some uncomfortable challenges, because as soon as you get out of your comfort zone, that will always, help you grow further. Okay, coming on to the tech lead model. So tech lead is not necessarily a business title, but this is more of a model that has been placed especially for senior SDEs or probably principal engineers. And it's a culmination of three things: technical leadership, program management, and technical mentorship. So talking about technical leadership, what it means is you should be extremely hands-on coding, right? And so basically the closer you get to the implementation, the more respect you can garner from your colleagues, from your seniors, from your juniors. So like the buck doesn't stop. Like if you're a very senior person and you are just waving your hand, doing that technical vision or map, but you do not have any idea about the code base, right? So that kind of tech lead you should become, and not just like having those technical vision but not having a hands-on on coding. Second is program management. It means that you are crafting technical roadmap or the technical vision for your team, for your organization. You are taking the end-to-end ownership for the delivery and the different milestones. You are always identifying and mitigating risks, right, ahead of your team. And you can also participate into different ship room updates, and you can shepherd office hours, obviously, and many other things that you can always partner with your different stakeholders and identify the key aspects. And you can always pivot to the greatest ROI, whatever is the greatest return of investment, you can work towards that. The third is technical mentorship. I've already talked about in the previous slides, where you can potentially coach your teammates, you can help your manager and provide feedbacks on the team performance, and you can also help them in the promotion documents or during their annual reviews. Now let's quickly take a look at promo doc writing. I would rather argue that that should not be just limited to promo doc writing, but this could be any other generic doc writing, be it a technical or a business doc. And there are a bunch of great points that have been mentioned here. I may not be able to explain all of them here, right, given the time constraint. But at the same time, what I would suggest you guys is to just probably take a pause and while watching out this video, read out these different points, and that will give you enough idea how to write a good business or a technical or a promo doc. Okay, to sum it up, we have already talked about professional growth for 4 different job levels: SD1s, SD2s, seniors, and principals. And there are 4 different broader points across which we can evaluate these different levels: scope, impact, body of work, and influence. So when you are operating at an SD1 level, you have a self impact. When you are operating at an SD2 level, you should have a team level impact. Now when you have become a senior or a senior SDE, then you should have an org level impact, and this is more level appropriate. If you're not doing that, then obviously you are in a troublesome situation. And if you have grown to a level of principal, then you should have a company-wide impact. Now, 2 things that apply to all of these software engineering levels is you should always have clarity of thought and expression, and you should always be paying attention to details. So now finally, looking at the FAQs, what I'll do is I'll flash a bunch of questions in front of you. I will not be explaining all of them here, right, because of the time constraint. But what I will definitely urge you is try to find out or give some answers in the YouTube channel. If you're watching this video and you are really interested in that, I would be more than happy to give my responses and replies for these questions there, right? So question number 1 is an SDE totally dependent on their SDM for promotions? Question number 2 is, should SDs fight each other to get the promotable projects? Ouch. Oh my god. That's another question. I have seen SD3s move laterally to become SDMs. Should I do the same? And how do I know if I'm making progress towards my promotion to next level? Okay, thank you. That's all for today. Do like, share, and subscribe my YouTube channel for more such content. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.